know that feeling, right? The one where you've got like a million tabs open in your brain.
Oh, yeah. Constantly bouncing between emails, social media, maybe that report you're supposed to be writing.
Exactly. It feels like our attention has become this, I don't know, this endlessly fragmented thing.
Yeah, constantly being pulled in different directions by, well, everything online.
It's just so easy to lose hours scrolling, doing stuff that feels busy but leaves you feeling kind of empty, you know?
It really is the paradox of our time, isn't it? We're more connected than ever, but at the same time, there's this growing sense of distraction. Our ability to really, truly concentrate feels like it's eroding.
Uh-huh. And that's exactly why this idea of deep work feels so important right now.
Absolutely. Deep work being that, focused, uninterrupted concentration, the kind that lets you generate real value, learn complex things quickly.
Right. It's kind of the antidote to all the shallow work we do.
Yeah, the logistical stuff, the non-demanding tasks, they might be necessary sometimes, but they don't really move the needle forward in a big way.
So that's our mission for this deep dive today. We want to understand why this ability to focus deeply is, well, more critical than ever.
And look at what's happening in our minds when we're constantly pulled away from things.
And most importantly, give everyone some concrete strategies, things you can actually use, maybe even today, to cultivate a bit more of that deep focus in daily life.
Sounds good. So where should we start? Maybe with why deep work is so valuable in the first place. It's not just a nice-to-have skill anymore.
Definitely. Our sources talk about the economy, right? How deep work is becoming crucial.
Yeah, think about someone like Nate Silver. His whole reputation was built on accurately predicting elections by just rigorously analyzing huge amounts of data.
That's deep work right there. It's not just crunching numbers, is it?
No, it's the ability to see the signal through all the noise. And that kind of insight, well, it only comes from that prolonged, focused analysis. You just can't get that from shallow glances.
And there are other examples, like Jason Ben, the guy who taught himself coding really fast.
Right, and massively increased his income. That rapid mastery of something complex that's powered by the intensity of deep work.
It really does feel, though, like that kind of focus is getting harder and harder to find.
It absolutely is. And the sources point to a few interesting reasons why.
Like open office spaces, I know companies like Facebook and Square aimed for collaboration.
Yeah, the reality is often constant background noise, interruptions. It makes sustained concentration really, really challenging.
So the intention might be good, fostering interaction, but the outcome is.
Often prioritizing easy communication over actual focused production.
Yeah.
It's hard to really dive deep into a complex problem when there's constant ambient activity around you.
And then there's the whole social media thing, especially if you're like a creator or building a brand.
Oh, definitely. The pressure to be constantly visible online.
Yeah. Didn't the New York Times encourage employees to tweet? And I remember Jonathan Franzen got grief for not being on Twitter.
Exactly. It's like that online visibility has somehow become a substitute for actual meaningful output.
It's that cult of the internet idea you mentioned.
Right. This sort of unquestioned belief that just being online, being present, equates to value, even if it's shredding your focus.
Which leads perfectly into that other idea. Busyness as a proxy for productivity.
Ah, yes. You see people just drowning in emails, hopping from meeting to meeting.
All these really visible activities that create this illusion of being productive.
But like Matthew Crawford observed, for managers, the output of deep work can be hard to see, hard to quantify immediately. So what happens?
Visible busyness becomes the default signal. Look how many emails I answered.
And the cost of all that shallow communication, it adds up. Atlantic Media apparently calculated that a huge chunk of their payroll was just employees processing email.
Wow. Really makes you think about the true cost of those tools we think are so efficient.
It does.
Okay, so we get why deep work is valuable and maybe why it's getting rarer. But what's going on inside our heads when we actually do manage to focus deeply? The neurological side is fascinating.
It really is. And interestingly, focused attention seems to have a massive impact on our sense of meaning and satisfaction in our work.
Like the Winifred Gallagher example.
Yeah.
During her cancer treatment.
Exactly. She realized she had this power to consciously direct her attention. By focusing on the good things, the positive parts of her life, she found joy and meaning even when things were incredibly tough.
It's like our attention is a spotlight, isn't it? What we shine it on shapes our whole experience.
Precisely. And if we just let it constantly flit across, trivial emails or notifications, That becomes our reality.
And Gallagher found that an unfocused mind tends to drift towards worry, not positive stuff.
That's right. So a workday packed with shallow tasks, even if they seem harmless, can actually, neurologically speaking, lead to a pretty draining and unsatisfying experience overall.
But deep work, conversely.
Engages the more complex parts of our brain. It maximizes that sense of purpose and fulfillment we get from really using our skills.
And this ties into flow states, right? That feeling of being totally lost in what you're doing.
Absolutely. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's work. Flow states are not just enjoyable, they're major contributors to our overall happiness.
And deep work seems perfectly designed to trigger flow.
It really is. It needs high concentration, pushes our skills, gives immediate feedback, all key ingredients for flow. Our brains are basically wired to find that kind of intense engagement rewarding.
It feels like almost a fundamental human need for this kind of depth. The sources even bring in philosophy, don't they?
Yeah, Dreyfus and Kelly talking about the Enlightenment and the search for meaning. They contrast it with the inherent satisfaction you find in traditional crafts.
Like a wheelwright or a blacksmith, where the value is tangible right there in your hand.
Exactly, and you can connect that to today. Think about a really skilled programmer like Santiago Gonzalez who sees elegant code as, like, poetry.
Or that reference in The Pragmatic Programmer about medieval quarry workers feeling like they were building cathedrals.
It just highlights that deep satisfaction that comes from mastery and craftsmanship, which deep work enables even in modern technical fields.
Okay, this is great. We see the value, the brain benefits, even the sense of purpose. So now, the million-dollar question. How do we actually do more of it? Especially with distractions everywhere.
Right, the practical side. And the sources offer some really actionable strategies. It's good that the focus is on creating a calmer, more intentional approach.
Yeah. And it's not like there's just one way to do it, is there? The sources mention different philosophies.
No, definitely not one size fits all. You've got the monastic approach.
Yeah.
People who fiercely guard their focus, maybe eliminate distractions almost entirely.
Super intense. Then there's bimodal.
Yeah, alternating. So periods of intense, isolated, deep work, then periods of more open, shallow, collaborative stuff.
Okay. And rhythmic. That sounds like a habit.
It is. Establishing a daily rhythm, like doing your deep work at the same time each day, building it into your routine.
And finally, journalistic.
That's more about seizing opportunities for deep work whenever and wherever you can find them. Maybe you have an unexpected free hour? Boom, deep work.
So the key is finding a structure that works for you, your job, your life.
Exactly. But underpinning all of these is a really crucial skill. Embracing boredom.
Ah, yes. This was interesting. It's not just about willpower.
No. The sources really emphasize that concentration is a skill. It needs training, like a muscle. Think about a Marlin studying the Talmud. That intense mental workout actually improved his business focus.
That makes sense. And that research by Clifford Nass, kind of scary.
It is. He found that chronic multitaskers actually get worse at filtering out irrelevant stuff. They struggle to focus even when they try.
It's like the constant distraction actually rewires the brain for, well, shallowness.
Pretty much. And that's why just taking an occasional digital detox isn't really enough.
Right. It doesn't fix the underlying habit.
Exactly. Our brains need consistent practice in resisting that pull of constant stimulation. And internet Sabbath, like William Powers talked about, can help. But regular resistance is key.
So what are some practical ways to train that resistance muscle?
Well, one really tangible technique is to intentionally schedule your internet use.
Oh, okay. How does that work?
Decide in advance when you'll go online and for what specific reasons. Then, outside those blocks, you consciously stay offline.
So you're minimizing that constant switching between like high focus work and low stimulus scrolling.
Precisely. That
Yeah.
switching is really addictive for our brains. And another part of this is, what do you do in those little moments of downtime? Waiting in line, between tasks?
Reach for the phone.
Right. Resist that urge. Just be bored for a moment. Those little pauses are actually training opportunities for your focus.
Huh. Okay. What else? Productive meditation. That sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it's not about emptying your mind like traditional meditation. It's about focusing your attention on a specific professional problem while doing something physically routine like walking, commuting, maybe even showering.
So you're using that downtime productively, but for thinking.
Exactly. And it strengthens your ability to hold focus and resist distractions.
How do you structure that? Just let your mind wander on the problem.
It's best to give it some structure. Start by mentally outlining the key parts of the problem. Then define the very next question you need to answer. And when your mind wanders, which it will,
Gently bring it back.
Gently bring it back to the problem. You're training that focus muscle again.
Cool. And the sources even mention memory training, like memorizing cards.
Yeah, people like Daniel Kielop or Joshua Foer. While it seems totally unrelated to, say, writing a report, engaging in that kind of intense mental exercise can actually improve your overall concentration ability, making deep work easier.
Fascinating. So build the focus muscle. Got it. Now, the other side of the coin. How do we actually make time for deep work by cutting down on all the shallow stuff?
Right, because shallow work tends to expand to fill the time available.
Definitely feels that way sometimes.
So a key principle is just recognizing how much more valuable deep work usually is compared to shallow work. Yes, some shallow tasks are necessary, but they often eat up way more time and energy than they're worth.
So how do we fight back? One technique mentioned was scheduling every minute. That sounds intense.
It does sound intense, but the idea isn't to be rigidly locked in. It's about being intentional, making conscious choices about where your time goes, rather than just reacting.
Like realizing how much time you actually spend on less productive stuff versus what you think you spend.
Exactly. Scheduling forces you to confront that reality and make deliberate trade-offs.
Okay. And how do you figure out what's truly shallow? There was that helpful question.
Ah, yes. How long would it take to train a smart, recent college graduate with no specialized training in my field to complete this task?
Right. And if the answer is not very long,
It's probably shallow work. Apply that to routine emails, standard presentations, maybe certain meetings. It can be quite revealing.
I also like the fixed schedule productivity idea.
Yeah, setting a firm quitting time, no matter what.
And then working backward from that deadline to figure out how to fit the important stuff in.
Exactly. It forces you to be ruthless about prioritizing deep work and finding efficiencies rather than just letting work expand indefinitely. It's a good counter to that always-on culture.
Makes sense. Now, email. The black hole of shallow work for many people. Any tips there?
Yes. The sources had a few good ones. First, maybe counterintuitively, be a bit slower to respond sometimes.
Really? Why?
It subtly trains people to be more thoughtful in their initial emails, maybe solving the problem themselves or providing all necessary info up front, reducing back and forth.
Okay, what else? Filters? Batching?
Yeah, using sender filters helps prioritize. Batching your email checks maybe just 2 or 3 times a day stops the constant interruption cycle.
That makes sense. And doing more work in your replies?
Right. If you reply, try to be comprehensive. Think ahead.
Right.
What's the next question they'll ask? Answer it now to prevent another round of emails.
Good one. And maybe the boldest move?
Don't respond to everything.
Yeah. Apparently, Bill Gates was known for being super selective about which emails he even engaged with.
Recognizing that not every message actually requires your response can free up a surprising amount of mental energy and time for deeper things,
It feels like a relief just thinking about it.
doesn't it? Ultimately, building a deep work practice isn't about perfection. It's an ongoing journey.
Yeah, making consistent, conscious choices about attention and time.
Exactly. Gradually building better habits and really prioritizing the kind of work that, creates real value and feels genuinely fulfilling.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the main takeaway feels pretty clear. In this world that's practically designed to splinter our focus.
The ability to go deep, to really concentrate, it's becoming a kind of superpower.
Definitely. So to help people get started, maybe even right after listening, what are a few actionable things they could try?
Okay, 3 ideas. First, schedule a specific block of time today, maybe just 30 minutes, maybe 60. Dedicated only to focused work on one important thing.
And crucially, eliminate distractions during that block. Phone silenced, notifications off, find a quiet space if you can.
Exactly. Second,
Right.
identify one recurring shallow task that eats up your time. Just one. And then brainstorm. How could you minimize it? Batch it. Automate part of it. Delegate it. Just find one way to shrink its footprint to make space for depth.
Good one.
And third,
Try a mini productive meditation session. During a break, on your commute. Consciously pick one work problem.
mentally review the key parts.
And then really try to define the very next concrete question you need to answer to move forward on it. Train that focus.
Those are great, very doable steps.
And maybe a final thought to ponder. Just consider if you shifted even a small slice of your day, say 10%, from scattered shallow stuff to focused deep work.
Yeah.
What kind of impact could that have on your results? Sure, but also on your sense of accomplishment, your satisfaction. What little personal sanctuary for deep focus could you start building, maybe even today?